Yes. Okay. The topic for today is India opposes Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. So we shall see the reasons and analysis of why India is, opposing the prohibition of nuclear weapons. Because India has always stood for the nuclear disarmament since the time of Jawaharlal Nehru, since the time of our independence, since the time of Non-Proliferation Treaty or your CTBT, or throughout the entire history of post-independence India, we have stood for prohibition of nuclear weapons. Okay, India has always stood for prohibition of nuclear weapons. So why in this square instance is India opposing the prohibition of nuclear weapons? We shall see in today's class. So this shall be an answer writing class where you can write your answers and send me. The model mains question for today is: the Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons has been opposed by India over the past few years. Do India's actions go against the spirit of nuclear disarmament? Critically comment. Okay, so you can write this answer. I'll be correcting it. You can send this on the Telegram group. You can go to Telegram. You can download the app Telegram and search on Telegram @IAS preparation strategy. Okay, you'll be getting the Gradeup symbol and you can submit your answers here. Okay, I hope today there's been a change in the class. The class was at 7 p.m. every day. So from today we are taking it up at 2 p.m. because there is another Gradeup Super batch where I'm teaching Science and Tech in IR. So for them, the dates are clashing. So the state of IR classes every day from today, they'll be conducted at 2 p.m. Okay. Every day, Monday to Friday, we'll be taking up it at 2 p.m. So generally, I think all of you are accustomed to watch me at 7 p.m. Every day I come at 7 p.m. There's a lot of people also. So now, please adjust your timetable to appear at 2 p.m. Okay, 2 p.m. we'll be taking up this class. All right, so let's begin the class. So the first ever treaty to ban nuclear weapons has come into force on Jan 22nd, 2021. Okay, recently it has come into force. And since the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, many treaties or many sort of initiatives were taken up to ban the nuclear weapons. But this is the first time it has entered into force. Okay, I'll tell you all about the treaty, who brought it about and how did this come about and why the world is opposing and why India is opposing. Because India, as we have seen, it is a champion of nuclear disarmament. Okay, so we shall see why did this actually happen. So all over the world, there are different reactions. For example, Greenpeace, as you know, Greenpeace is a famous NGO which stands for environmental issues and also against nuclear weapons. So they have they're celebrating that nuclear weapons are illegal at last. Okay, because it's part of the international law. But India is not supporting this nuclear weapon prohibition. It doesn't support the Treaty on Nuclear Weapon Prohibition. Okay, if India supports nuclear weapon prohibition or not, we shall see throughout the class. But this Treaty of Nuclear Weapon Prohibition, India is not supporting. So what exactly is the treaty? The Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, or simply it's called as NWBT also. It is the first legally binding international agreement. Please note the words, it's legally binding. So if a state has signed this treaty and ratified it, it has to undertake the provisions of the treaty compulsorily. Okay, it is binding on the state to undertake them, to prohibit the nuclear weapons and leading the goal towards total elimination. Okay, this is by a resolution of UNGA 71/258. This number also you should remember. Generally in prelims, they ask you the number also. Once there was a question, UNSC sanctions number 2378 is related to what? It is related to child labor. It was asked in 2018. So not all, obviously, not all the numbers, but such very important numbers, you should be having a fair clue of it. Okay, these are the tougher questions in prelims. Yes, good afternoon, Kumari Priyanka. Good afternoon, Satya, everyone. So what are the features of the nuclear weapons? It is comprehensive. As I told, it is for against nuclear weapon development. And by this treaty, the state should not develop test, produce, acquire, possess, stockpile, use, or even threaten to use the nuclear weapons. Okay, the entire life cycle of the nuclear weapons is there. It shouldn't develop, it shouldn't test, produce, acquire, and it shouldn't use, and it shouldn't even threaten to use the nuclear weapons if a state has signed the TNPW. And it also prohibits deployment of nuclear weapons on the national territory and assistance to any other state in the conduct of the prohibited activities. Okay, so it's a comprehensive treaty. It's a comprehensive treaty to cut down the nuclear weapons. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Roshan. Good afternoon, Arun Shinde. So all of you new people I'm seeing today, I think you're not, at 7 o'clock we have different crowd. So I'll also announce to the 7 o'clock that the batch is shifted to 2 p.m. every day. So that 2 p.m. aram se after your lunch, you can meet me every day and we'll have this half an hour discussion on the most important international affairs. Okay. This series has started around 2 weeks back. Since 2 weeks back, we are taking up the international affairs news, which is prominently covered by the newspapers. And the aim is to get all the questions correct in your prelims related to international affairs. There are roughly 5 to 6 questions. And in mains also, there are 4 questions. And for international affairs, the problem is there is no standard book. Okay, it all comes from your current affairs. So Gradeup wants to fill that gap with this series. And I promise you, for example, in one of the class I showed you that how all the 4 questions, how all the 3 questions which were covered in PSIR were done in our series. Okay, it was just 1 week old, the series, but still by a coincidence it was covered in our series. So if you keep following this, I promise you, I guarantee you that in your mains, all the 4 questions which are asked in IR, you'll be able to answer them. Just half an hour every day, if you were able to put in. Okay. Yes, Tanishka Pandey and everyone. For the older series also, you can watch. Okay, you can press my link. Since 2 weeks, we are having this series, The State of International Affairs. It's there on YouTube also. So what does this treaty do? It obliges the state to provide adequate assistance to individuals which are affected by use and testing. So a state is there, say maybe Iceland or Greenland. They are not part of the nuclear weapon state. But imagine they are affected by this nuclear weapon, then the treaty obliges the state to give assistance also. And it prevents or suppresses any activity prohibited by state by taking any activity which is prohibited. Okay, general rules are there. Fine. So it has an entire life cycle. You shouldn't produce it and you shouldn't deploy the nuclear weapons. Even if you're testing it and another state is affected, still you should give assistance to that state. Imagine if India is making a test and near Tamil Nadu, if we are making a nuclear weapons testing and Sri Lanka is affected. So if India signs a treaty, we should give assistance to Sri Lanka for the effect caused for the nuclear weapon testing. Okay, so it's a comprehensive treaty. And this is spearheaded by ICAN. Okay, you have to remember this. Okay. It is for abolition of nuclear weapons. It is a NGO and it started working with the governments to promote a process at UN to negotiate a legally binding instrument. In 2010 it started and now in 2020, 50 countries have signed. So the treaty has entered into force. I mean, after 90 days later, so that is on Jan 22nd. Okay. Initially in 2017 itself, this treaty was introduced at the UNGA and it got a support of 122 members. They have adopted it. Many countries like India and the nuclear weapon states, we didn't even adopt it. So 122 countries have adopted it. Then 50 countries have signed and ratified. And finally, on Jan 22nd, it has come into force. Okay. And ICAN, it also won the Nobel Prize in 2017. International Committee for Abolition of Nuclear Weapons. It is an NGO. Please remember, it is an NGO. Okay, from their website, I was seeing their website. They're giving posters like this. We don't mean to brag, but we have got an overwhelming majority in favor, 71%. 6 have abstained and 24% are against this treaty. So why is this happening? Like, if it's a good thing, if we want to prohibit the nuclear weapons, because nuclear weapons are bad. We know that nuclear diplomacy say it can cause war. India also wants this disarmament. So why exactly do you think this is happening? Anybody knows the answer? Why have this 24% countries have stood against it, and why 6% are abstained it. It should be all of them. It should be 193 of 193 of the UNGA countries. They should be opposed. They should be in favor of this treaty. Anyone? So there are vested interests. Obviously, the nuclear weapon states like USA, Russia, Brazil, Britain, China, and France, they are NWS. Okay, these 5 are your NWS countries under the NPT. So they have invested a lot of money. They have invested a lot of time, R&D kiye nuclear weapons mein. So suddenly you can't expect them to quit on these nuclear weapons. And also, there's another important issue that, for example, I mean, now we know that Joe Biden is the president, not Mr. Trump. But when he was the president, he had written that when 50 countries are about to ratify it, that these countries are making a strategic error. Okay, I'll tell you why India is opposing also. Similarly, India, Pakistan, North Korea, and Israel. These 9 countries have the nuclear weapons with them, or they are believed to have. And also the NATO alliance. Okay, NATO alliance also abstained from voting. So as long as they refuse to sign, these countries, once we are not signing, is anybody saying? Gokul Krishna is saying interest in dominance. That is partly true. The real reason is something else, I'll tell you. Okay. Now, as we have not signed and ratified, it doesn't apply to us. Okay, only the countries who have signed and ratified, it applies to them. And Trump administration has told that they're making a strategic error by, taking up this ratification. And actually, all these 50 countries which have ratified are very small countries. Okay, like maybe the Arab League countries. And the 50th country was Honduras. Does anybody know where Honduras is? Many of us don't even know where Honduras is. Okay, it is that in that middle American country, that small country which is there between North America or South America. So these countries, this ICANN is diplomatically involved with them, financially invested in them, and they are trying to get this against nuclear weapons. All of these are small countries, but the major countries, the superpowers of the world, are against it. As Gokul Krishnan is saying, they do have an interest in dominance. That is partly true. But more importantly, India's view, if you see, India is against this because India attaches high priority to a universal, non-discriminatory, and verifiable nuclear disarmament. This is extremely important. Okay, this is from the official MEA website. Okay, this is from official MEA website on Jan 22nd itself, when the treaty came into force. The MEA website we have updated. Okay, so you can actually quote in your answer. The answer which you'll be writing, you can quote in your answer according to the MEA press release. They have told that India believes in a universal, non-discriminatory, and verifiable nuclear disarmament. This, whatever TPNW is there, it is not part of customary international law. It doesn't have any standards or norms. There are no new standards or norms. And India has also told that we support the convention in the Conference on Disarmament. It is the world's single largest multilateral disarmament, and it works on consensus. So we support that. Okay, this is the real reason why India is not supporting the TNPW. Okay, it's not like we are against the nuclear disarmament or we are against the treaty, but we are against this new treaty. For example, India has always been the member of this Conference on Disarmament. Since when? Since 1978, we are the part of it. Okay, since a long time, we are a part of it. And since 1996, India has been part of Group of 21 also. Okay, it's a program action calling for phased elimination of nuclear weapons. So, we have worked on eliminating nuclear weapons, on disarmament, complete disarmament. Okay, since the time of Jawaharlal Nehru, our first Prime Minister itself, we are working on it. But it had got a lot of friction throughout the Cold War era. Throughout the Cold War era, when there was that nuclear instability in the world, of course, until the Soviet, breakdown of the Soviet Empire, a breakdown of USSR, there was a strong Cold War. And India was always towards this Conference on Disarmament. We have worked many decades in this. So suddenly a new NGO comes up in 2007 and in 2017 they introduce a new treaty. So by taking up that, all these years of efforts which we have put in conference disarmament, they are reversed. Okay, so India says that the current process does not include verification. Okay, there is no verification aspect. And the treaty, for example, this TNPW, this new treaty says that they'll remove the nuclear weapons from operational status immediately, and they'll destroy by a legally binding time-bound plan. Now, all these terminologies which are using, they are not properly known. For example, under the conference disarmament, the verification would be done by IAEA, okay, which is the prominent International Atomic Energy Agency, which is there. It is a prominent body internationally which is dealing with the nuclear weapons and nuclear energy. So that sort of verification is there. This TNPW which you are having now, there is no verification towards it. And we have worked so many years on Conference of Disarmament. There are 65 countries as part of the Conference of Disarmament. Suddenly a new treaty can't, take the dominance over the CD, okay, Conference of Disarmament. This is India's official position, okay. And this treaty also doesn't specify who would monitor, who would certify the progress, and how the non-compliance can be addressed. Nothing is there in the treaty. Okay, nothing is there as part of the TNPW. TPNW, okay, Treaty of Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. There is no non-compliance, there is no who will monitor, who will certify, nothing is clear on that. So India is rejecting this treaty. Alright, so that is the real reason why India is opposed to the Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Okay, it's not that India is against nuclear disarmament. India has always been a proponent of the nuclear disarmament. Okay, disarmament implies all actions to gradually bring down the nuclear weapon holdings of nuclear weapon states. And our nuclear doctrine bhi hai of Jan 2003, where India is committed for a continued goal of nuclear weapon-free world by a global, verifiable and non-discriminatory nuclear disarmament. Okay, so India has always strongly stood for this nuclear disarmament. It is nothing new. It is not a new treaty which is involved, and suddenly we can't sort of jump to this new treaty. Okay, and you can actually quote Abdul Kalam, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, who has told, India can live without nuclear weapons. That's our dream, and it should be the dream of US also. Okay, if disarmament is there, it should be complete. There shouldn't be any difference between the states. Of course, that in NPT and CTBT when we discuss, I'll tell you more in depth about it. But here we are talking of nuclear disarmament. Okay, so what sort of conclusion can you give? Of course, the nuclear, we also want complete disarmament. Okay, we are focusing on the Conference on Disarmament. But these countries which are there, the nuclear weapon states, they will never allow a disarmament. बहुत पैसे लगाए, they want dominance. They have done a lot of research and development. So what can be the way forward? Can somebody tell me what can be the way forward? Any suggestions from your side? How to eliminate this nuclear weapons? Anyone? See, it is part of human nature to, if something of value is there, if I'm having a diamond in my hand, if I'm having some gold in my hand, and if you suddenly say, I want to eliminate all diamonds, okay, you'll obviously resist because there is something of value. So how should we reduce the nuclear weapons? We should focus on diminishing the value of it. Okay, so the movement towards nuclear weapon can be started by reducing the salience of nuclear weapons. Okay, so we should reduce the worth of nuclear weapons, and nations may then be persuaded to eliminate their arsenals. So we should make it a nuclear war-free world. Okay, so we should have something like no first use policy. Like India, we have our no first use policy. Similarly, India believes on strategic dialogue of phased reduction of the nuclear weapons. Okay, India has maybe 110 nuclear weapons and Pakistan has 112. Though of course India has the bigger nuclear weapons. So all those issues are there of the nuclear weapons. But the worth of nuclear weapons can only be reduced if you're not using them. Okay, if you're not using them maybe for we have never used, India has never used. If this continues for maybe next 40, 50 years where we're having a nuclear free world, nuclear peace, then of course nobody will focus on investing so much money in the nuclear weapons. So that should be our strategy. So we should reduce the salience of nuclear weapons. All right. That sort of conclusion you can give. And for people, if you want to know about nuclear, no first use policy, this class is there. You can go to YouTube and search India's Nuclear Doctrine, Time to Rethink NFU, or on the Gradeup app also you can see. On Jan 6th or Jan 5th, this class is there. I've completely discussed the nuclear doctrine. All right. And if you like the class, if you want to follow this series where every day we'll take up such important topics, you can follow me on the Gradeup app. You can press my image and you can go here. Here the follow button is there. You can press the follow button. Okay. Yes, very correct. Gokul Krishnan, there should be disinvestment in the nuclear field also. But that will come phase. The most important issue should be, don't use, you shouldn't create a situation where nuclear weapons may come into fore. Just like how we eliminated the usage of chemical and biological weapons, nuclear weapons ko bhi aise hum kar sakte. Slowly they'll themselves get eliminated. Okay. And for people who are watching on YouTube and who are not part of our Gradeup Super, we have our Gradeup Super subscription, by which this is our flagship course, IAS 2021. It's a comprehensive course for prelims cum mains. It's available in both English and Hindi medium. And in this course, we'll be taking up 350 plus live classes just like this. You can ask me questions, you can interact with me. And there are 325 plus PDFs provided as part of this. And there are additional classes of Yojana, India Yearbook, Kurukshetra, CSAT. There are 30 mock tests for prelims and there are also mock tests for mains. Okay, essay papers, 7 previous year papers also will be evaluated. So entirely we have, and you'll also be getting access to the UPSC EPFO, which is there on May 2021, and the complete NCERT module. Okay, complete NCERT module from 6th to 10th will be taught to you. And all of them just by taking the Gradeup Super subscription, just by one subscription. And this is our faculty. We keep coming on the free classes. I hope you've seen all of us. And we are the ones who will also be teaching you the Gradeup Super classes. Okay, these are the costs for the Gradeup Super subscription. You can get in touch with our counselors on this number about the further details for joining. And today there is a 40% off in the Gradeup Super subscription. You can see on the website, if you're considering to buy this, there is a flat 40% off on the cost. Okay. And we have the daily free classes on Gradeup app, the daily editorial analysis, UPSC EPFO, special file lectures and GS for IAS and daily current affairs at 9 PM. So please download the Gradeup app, and you can also watch this series of mine Monday to Friday. Is there an